This video is going to discuss Lord of the Flies, kind of do a backtrack to the beginning of the book and get us up through chapter 6. And I especially want to make sure that you're understanding the connection between the id, ego, and the superego. So what I've done is I've pulled some quotations, some quotes from chapter 5, so that you can start to see how these archetypes, which are an archetype means an example of something else. Okay, so for example, we might have a hero archetype. So we know like the example, the epitome of a hero, and we'll see the archetype or a similar example of that elsewhere. Regardless, let's get into this. So Lord of the Flies, we have obviously how they ended up there. The conch, and by the way, the conch is symbolic as it brings everybody to order of how it represents order and structure. It's what you have to hold when you're speaking at a meeting. It summons everybody, and it has there's a lot of respect around it. So it's very symbolic. We know this. Okay, so one of the first action is they go and explore the island to make sure it is an island and assess what they need to do from that point on. We talked about how Simon is very comfortable in the jungle. That's very unusual because he's unusual. That's going to come up quite a bit in the next few chapters. Okay, he's at peace in the jungle. Okay, Jack hunts, lets the fire go out. And now it's just not a difference of priorities. We have an intense conflict because they missed their chance for rescue. So this is a very big deal, and it can no longer be, well, you can do what you like and I'll do what I like. They're all depending on each other, and there goes their chance. They missed it. Okay, so we're feeling tension, and it especially occurs at the top of that mountain, and then at the meeting when they go back down the mountain where Ralph calls a meeting immediately. So we already had the video, and you can go back and watch it again, where we have the id, that is the pleasure principle. I want it now. We have the ego. Well, actually, let's just do id, and then let's go to superego, where they rely on the morality of things. You can't have it now. It's not right. Whether or not somebody's watching, they look at whether things are morally correct and right. And the ego is caught in the middle. And I really want you to see, like, I need to do a bit of planning to get it. So the ego really tries to, like a slide ruler between two extremes, tries to appease the id and give it what it wants. Oops, message. And also tries to acknowledge the superego at the same time. So every decision that you make, your ego is sliding between your two extremes of I want it now. Is this morally correct? Will people dislike us if I do it? Okay, so ego's caught in the middle, two extremes, reality principle. So Ralph is the leader. He is the ego. He's caught between these two extremes. He has to try to balance them. Okay, so the id wants immediate gratification, doesn't want to wait, doesn't want to listen, doesn't care what society thinks. This is very childlike. They can be upset very easily. So this is like a child in public throwing a tantrum. And this part always chooses what is pleasurable. So that's Jack the hunter. Okay, then we have the superego, which looks at the ethical situation, whether or not something's approved by society and even by God, looks to the authority of God and direction. And that's Piggy. He's the thinker. Cute. Okay, you've probably seen this picture before, the yin and the yang it's called, or yin and yang, whichever way you've seen that. Do you realize that all three parts of the psyche we're talking about are represented here? So let's imagine that this white part would represent the superego, the morality of the situation. The id could represent our impulses, as Freud would say, our sexual impulses, greed, anything that leads to pleasure and is only motivated by pleasure. But the entire image is the ego. So the ego has to contain both of those extremes within it. We are composed of both of those parts. And I don't want you to think or assume that, oh, we don't need the it is all bad. We don't need the it. We need that part. And as we go on with this book and you see how the tension between these characters changes, I'm going to emphasize that it's not just, oh, the it is awful and the superego is better. Not at all. We need a balance between them. Okay. So this would be representative of the ego in the middle, superego, id. In our book, this is Ralph, this is Piggy, this is Jack. Okay, I pulled some quotes from chapter 5. So we have Piggy saying this. We know that he is the superego. What are grown-ups going to think? Going off and hunting pigs, letting fires go out. And now. And then we have Jack saying to Piggy, you shut up, you fat slug. You feel this tension. He's angered at the correction from the morality factor. Now, Ralph, the ego, says to Jack, the id, Piggy's got the conch, which means kind of check yourself, like calm down. And Jack, the id, who's really prone to being very sensitive and very jealous, that's right, favor Piggy as you always do. Now, Ralph, the ego, trying to temper or balance the id's reactiveness, says, but you're breaking the rules. Okay, here comes Jack, the id, firing back. Who cares? Bullock to the rules. We're strong and we can hunt. And here's Piggy, the superego, once again. What's grown-ups going to say? Just look at them. And he says this as Jack is running off, yelling and hollering, etc. I do want to talk again about the conscious and the subconscious, because this comes up with the title of our chapter, Beast from Water. So to understand the subconscious, think of an entire house, as I have pictured here. And we have the visible floors. I want you to think, though, that this whole house is our conscious and our subconscious. You'll also hear the subconscious called unconscious. They're the same thing. The entire house contains everything we see, hear, experience, witness, everything. It can never leave the house. Good and bad experiences, memories, tragedies, trauma, it's all in the house. So the visible floors, that's our conscious self. That's what we believe and accept about ourselves. And that's what we're willing to look at every day and share with others. Now, the basement is where you throw everything that you don't want to acknowledge about yourself, about life, about others. We want it hidden. We don't want to walk past it every day in the house. So as I said, nothing can ever leave the house, but we can hide, deny, suppress, and ignore things from our daily existence. Okay, so the basement, the subconscious or unconscious, whichever way you want to say that, is where we throw things that we want to deny, suppress, not look at any longer. And we hope that they're forgotten and disappear, though they can't leave, they're part of us. But that basement door can open, and it can spell out some angry items that are angry that they've been denied. So an extreme example would be someone with schizophrenia busts open that basement door, and the conscious part of themselves has to adjust by becoming, in this case, different personalities, like separate rooms within a house, because that basement door is open and those things that are trying to be denied are coming up through the basement. Okay, so here's an illustration of the mind's part. Find the ego, id, and superego. Notice that the id is 100% in the unconscious, or let's call that the subconscious. That's the basement. That's where it gets its motivation and energy from. So when chapter 5 says the beast comes from the water, I want you to be making the connection, because we're doing a Freudian reading of this, that it means the beast comes from the id. That's the part of us that is the true threat, the impulse, the jealousy, the anger. So the foreshadowing is to watch Jack, because if he represents the id and the beast is not an animal somewhere on the island and it comes from the water, it's going to come from that which Jack represents. So beast from water, Piggy says, unless we get frightened of people. And Simon says, maybe it, meaning the beast, is only us. Okay, so that is our lecture on that.